Studio, go to save. Participants, chat, and chat. Hi, Ann.
Now, that's better.
Okay, good. So
Yes.
you are iPad 5.
Yes, I am.
Okay. By the way, while well, I don't know, I'm firing up YouTube and I can't. It sort of says right now that I'm the only one watching the YouTube thing. So let's see. Okay, so yeah, you appeared for a moment on YouTube. Okay, so it's going back and forth. All right. Anyway, I've had another person contact me with interest in the Tallulah Center. Now, I don't think this is someone with capital to do anything with it right now, but based on a phone conversation, this is someone who may have significant expertise.
Oh,
Someone who's worked in rural, again, I haven't seen a resume, but just from the
right.
conversation, worked in rural economic development,
Uh-huh.
and has also been an entrepreneur and has a product line that came out of that's followed.
Okay.
And just FYI, it may be somebody, I don't know where you stand with the depot, but she might work at the depot. She might be working, it might work for her in the store or the old general store.
Okay.
Still checking it out. But if you're particularly interested, let me know. I'll accelerate that. And if not, that's okay.
I am interested.
Okay. As soon as I get a better feel for what the situation is,
Yeah.
I'm Mary Beth. I'll be in touch.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
Well, let's see. The gang is gradually getting here. If y'all don't mind, while we get ready, I'm going to get things set up for the evening. So,
Okay, go for it.
Mary Beth,
Yes.
have you followed up with anybody yet on the sign thing from the other night?
No, I have not.
I have. We'll talk
Okay.
at another time.
Okay.
Just I got a little insight from a council person.
Okay. Well, you did better than me.
Well, this was a happenstance. But you got to be careful about those happenstances. That's kind of what gets us in trouble sometimes.
Well, but you got to grab an opportunity when you see it, though, sometimes.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you. At any rate, sometimes it's, yeah, we'll talk. Following
Okay.
up with our previous discussion. I'm trying
Okay.
to get all my little virtual documents where I'm not tripping all over myself tonight. And I'm going to assume.
Oops. What happened? Oh, I lost it.
What'd you lose?
I don't, it's not on my, I can hear you, but I don't see it on my screen anymore.
Um,
Oh, okay. Never mind.
okay, we good?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh boy, let's see. There's a PowerPoint in here someplace. There we go. I need like 5 monitors that I can
Boy,
feel like producing a television show or something. Which I guess at some level you are.
It's kind of similar, maybe.
Okay, so what else? I see Brian Irvin. I can't place who Brian is. Is that one of our DDA members on somebody else's machine, or do we have a visitor?
Brian is David Irvin's son.
Okay.
He's working for North Georgia Food Stamp.
Hi, Brian. Welcome aboard. David, you're looking downright scholarly.
I can't figure out why the coronavirus has caused men to grow beards. They do have razors, don't they now?
Well, I've always had a beard, so.
Yeah, but I see people that never have beards, and I'm like, that's interesting.
Maybe there's just no reason to shave.
That could be.
Okay. Hang on. Dustin's having a little difficulty. Let's see here. Yes. Okay. All right. So give me a minute to get Dustin going. No, Carol has some years ago told me that she wanted me to grow a ponytail, which
Ooh.
business school faculty can't really get away with that, but it may be happening depending upon how it goes. Hang on. I told her she'd have to wait to retirement for that to happen, but it could happen sooner.
A lot of professors have ponytails, so you just fit right in.
Well, and in liberal arts colleges, lots of professors or some
Right.
professors have, but the business school, not so much.
We're a little tight, or what do you call it? Yeah.
Yeah, it just it's a little outside the norm.
Yeah.
Let's see. Give me a moment. And I have decided that when I move, at some point in time in the future, I'm going to get in a town with a shorter name.
Well, it's kind of funny, you know, my address at the Tallulah Point is Tallulah Point Overlook, 940 Tallulah Gorge Scenic Loop, Tallulah Falls, Georgia.
Oh, that's a long one.
I know.
Yeah. Okay. And if I guess if you got on, you also got both the agenda, which is going to be pretty much the same, and
Yep.
then I sent you a copy of an old budget just as a basis of discussion. I have tried a couple of times to sit down and frame out, here are our options, you know, multiple different ways of grant, you know, loan, and then do we sell it, do we lease it, and what are the implications of each?
Right.
It keeps getting more and more complicated. Someday maybe I will have that just as a decision.
Yeah, it would be good. Yeah, have it in writing.
Well, every time I sit down, it gets more dysfunctional as I try to fill it out. All right, it is 6:30. We definitely have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hi, Marcia. 6. We got a quorum. We're waiting on Joey. And it doesn't look like if my YouTube, I've got YouTube running over here, and it says only one watching. So it's not like, at least at the moment, we have a ton of lurkers, you know, watching what we're doing. But
I'm glad to hear people have other things to do.
well, yeah, some of them on the DDA possibly. But anyway, I am going to convene this meeting. Whoop, I got the wrong one up, but it doesn't matter. I've got the draft up rather than the actual, but that's okay. I have sent you a copy of the agenda. And while we may smear a little bit here and there, jumping between topics as discussion allow, I have no changes. So do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Mary Beth seconds. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the agenda stands. Let me make sure I don't have anybody else trying to get in the door. Okay, I can monitor that. And pardon me, I occasionally have to go into monitoring mode, and we're good at the moment. Okay, next agenda item, approval of the minutes. You have gotten a copy of the minutes from our secretary earlier. Are there any comments or corrections?
Nope.
Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as written? Okay, Mary Beth, I saw that hand first. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, well, boy, there's sound, and I'm gonna put Dustin. Dustin, I think, sort of beat you to it.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're rocking. Chairman's comments, I'm going to reserve comments just toward the end. We'll have some discussion and I'll have any comments there. Treasurer's report. Right now, our treasurer is not present. So when he wanders in later, we will let the treasurer make the treasurer report. If we spent any money, I haven't signed a check. David, have you signed a check? Okay, so rumor has it we haven't spent anything of late, but we'll confirm that when we have access to our Joey. All business. Okay, DDA members and officers. Let the minutes state that the DDA has yet to receive guidance on appropriate membership. And so we will continue with our existing membership until we receive legal guidance from the town and attorney. We okay with that? That's in there.
Yes.
Now, David, was that a question or was that just? Okay, you're good. All right. Having said that, we need to right quick review a couple of things as we set up for later in the evening. Give me a moment to, nope, I don't want to poll. I want to share screen and PowerPoint. Okay, you should be seeing a PowerPoint screen. Are we good? All right. Now, we need to look a little bit at our directors and what's going on now and going forward in the near future. You should see the timeline there of the next few years. The enabling resolution from the town appointed these folks for these terms. Joey and Dustin for 2 years, which comes up at the end of June. Christy and myself for 4 years, which comes up at the end of June in 2022. And David, Ann, and Mary Beth for 6 years that takes them out to 2024. And this staggering was as prescribed by state law to kick things off so that you have staggered terms. Very quickly after that, we went to our training, and our training specified that, towns typically would have a council person on the DDA. There wasn't a requirement, and I think it'd be tough to put more than 2. I think that would be getting into some legal hair splitting. But our perspective was, well, Mary Beth is on the council, and that's why she was on the DDA anyway, as being the council's representative. So this was our perception for the first year or so. And then, of course, going forward, you would have 4-year replacements for Joey and for Dustin, 4 years for Christy and myself. And then after the long 6-year terms of David and Ann, there would be 4-year appointments. And then Mary Beth was there for as long as she was on the council. And that defined her membership. That was our understanding. Now, Mary Beth did not run last year, but Joey did. So Mary Beth is no longer the council representative. Had she not initially been appointed to that 6-year term, probably she would have rolled off. But you know, by our reckoning, since she was appointed for 6 years, she just would fulfill her 6-year term. And then Joey's slot, which normally would have finished at the end of June, kind of became the ongoing town council slot. And so we thought, okay, this is how things are going to roll. And then we started looking at the town charter. The town charter forbids any council member from being on any other boards or authorities in the town. Now, at our DDA training, we had been told that, well, typically you have a council member on the authority. And we were told that state law trumps local ordinances. So we just assumed this was where there was a little messiness in setup of our bylaws and everything. And we were cool. Well, it turns out we find that the town charter is state law specific to Tallulah Falls, and it overrides general state law, which means, given the charter that currently exists, Mary Beth should never have been on the DDA until January 2020. She would have been disqualified. And Joey, once he's taken office, is disqualified from being on the DDA. Now, this was, what we presented earlier this year, asking the town, like, okay, we need to make some changes. And the town asked us to stay with what we're at. They were making adjustments to the charter that should take care of that. Now, also, this is to quote our attorney, Warren. This is a bright line. This isn't something there's any argument about. Now, one question, it also makes some comments about family members, and it confuses that with volunteers. There's some question as to whether or not I should have been on the DDA from its beginning until this January, because my wife was a town councilwoman. And then that also puts Christie a little bit in question. Now, this is an area that is more open to interpretation than the other, and probably would be resolved with a change in our charter. And again, that's why we had this quote at the beginning of all these meetings that we're still awaiting clarification. Now, the charter should be amended in this session of the General Assembly. However, COVID happened, and the General Assembly is busy with a lot of other stuff. I spoke briefly with Mayor Early last week, and it's not certain that the charter will actually get amended before the General Assembly does the sine die thing and finishes for the year. So we're not sure if there's a charter change or not. If that's the case, Joey's slot may be a little bit at risk. We'll have to see what comes to us about Christie's position, etc. So we're a little bit uncertain who is going to be in the DDA come August. Now, add to that officer terms, which are 2-year terms, and the officer terms are coming up at the end of June as well. So we will need a new slate of officers. Dustin's term is up per se, but we'll talk about that in a second. There's a chance that Joey is at risk. There's a chance that Christie's at risk. So we're not sure come August how many of us will officially be on the DDA. There's a good chance that if they do get the charter amended, that Joey's okay, Christie's okay. Any questions on that so far? And unfortunately, I'm not seeing you guys. Let me see. Hang on. Speak up, because I'm not seeing you as I'm presenting this. Any questions?
No questions. We're all good.
Okay. Sort of a review of, and one other thing that I will mention on this slide. Once we get the DDA rolling, we will have every 4 years, it will potentially be fruit basket turnover with 4 positions disappearing or at least having to, be renominated or changed. And then the other, 2 years later, the other 4-year terms are just 2. Tried to fix this in the bylaws, but because of state law mandates this arrangement. So just for what it's worth, there may be every 4 years the potential of sort of a fruit basket turnover with DDA members at the same time that you've got to come up with new officers. Now, this is the first change of DDA directors and officers that we've had. Bylaws give us no specific process of how we are to do this in terms of what changes do we make in which month, etc. If at some point in time in the future, we open up the bylaws for tinkering again, we might want to address this. What we're doing sets precedent. You don't have to do the same thing in the future, but I think it's useful to think forward into other situations. Fairness to me suggests that the officers are voted for in July. Once we see who the directors are for the DDA, then we vote for the officers then, rather than voting for them next month. It won't be a huge deal, assuming we don't have much turnover, but in the future, if 4 officers or 4 DDA members are leaving and only 2 are remaining, does that group need to be trying to figure out who the officers are? The nominating committee of the DDA would need a little time to figure out who is going to be on the DDA and try to put together an officer structure. So we need to get directors appointed before July so that they will take their position in July. Directors are appointed by the town council. There's no structure that says the DDA nominates directors, but there's no structure that says we don't. And so I think it's, a good idea that, we can send forth some suggestions. Council's not bound by them, but, we might want to do that. And ask the council to make an appointment for at least the slot we know that will be open. Do that in their June meeting so the nominating committee can take a look at who's who and come up with a slate during June. And then in the July meeting, officers can be elected by the DDA directors sitting at the time. So that's the somewhat convoluted logic that we're working with at the moment. Now, I have spoken with Dustin, and he is willing to do another term. Yes, my sense, and Mike and I talked about this because I think he and I both feel like we need to get lots of people in the town involved. But at this point in time, given some uncertainties about our membership going forward, given that he wouldn't need training, we wouldn't have to spend money sending somebody to training, etc. Given that he's been a valuable, asset going forward, and his connection to the Tallulah Falls School, which was a big entity in our town and is a big part of what we've done as a DDA so far. I would want him to stay. Now, we've kicked around some other folks that might be good on the DDA at some point in time, and there'll be opportunities in the future. But do I hear a motion from anyone to recommend to the town council that Dustin be reappointed to his position?
I will make the motion.
Okay, the secretary made the motion. Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll give that one to Ann. I need to keep track, so I'm treating all the kids fairly. But that one goes to Ann. Okay, any discussion? Yes.
Let me be clear. The motion is that we make a recommendation to council that that Dustin, right?
Dustin be reappointed for a 4-year.
It's just a motion for a recommendation. Yeah.
Well, if we can just recommend, I don't know. You figure out whether it's we move to recommend. I'll go with your judgment.
Okay.
Okay. Given there seems to be no discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Dustin, you can't oppose. No opposed. Okay, so motion carries. Let me scan my environment right quick, and we will talk about nominations in a moment when it comes up on the agenda. Give me a moment to make sure there's no email issues coming in. Okay, and all right, we're good. Administrative matters, just to keep you in the loop. If you recall when we met with Annika, and I forget her last name, from the Department of Agriculture, and with our folks from the Northeast Georgia Mountains Regional Commission, they mentioned that it wouldn't hurt for us to get DUNS and SAM numbers. These are ID numbers that we have to register for and are necessary should we ever want to get federal funds, grants, etc. So I started those back in February, March. I got delayed. I'm picked back up with those. I have applied for the DUNS number. I hope we're clear on that. There is some complication about addresses and the change of name and the fact that we have no employees. But I've got to do that, and I think I'm close to being okay there. And then I will do the SAM number. I've started that application. It's more involved and requires, I believe, some information from the DUNS number. That's working. Hopefully within a week or two or three, we will have that administrivia taken care of. So at some point in time in the future, if we are needing to apply for any type of federal grant, federal loan in what we're doing, or some federal program, that we will have those pieces of administrivia taken care of. So just to let you know, and I will leave breadcrumbs for whoever succeeds me in this position so that we can figure out what we have to do every year or two. Add to that, in all of this, it's like, okay, Secretary of State. If you recall, no one told us that we had to register with the Secretary of State as a DDA. And as as Linda found, it took her 2 or 3 days and multiple phone calls to get that done because we weren't a corporation. We weren't a 501c3. They didn't quite know what to do with us. I was expecting our 1-year registration to disappear or to require renewal. I went to check into that, and it said we were active, good standing. And by the way, Ann and Mary Beth, and for that matter, Marcia and Brian, if y'all bring expertise to this, let me know, because I don't regularly apply to the Secretary of State, to register my business. Anyway, went there, and it showed we were in good standing. It showed us past a year of when we registered. Long story short, I called, and in keeping with Linda's previous experience, everybody was confused. And they said something about, well, you've never paid. Well, then how are we registered if we were never paid? And why did we not get some notification that it was time to pay again? Now, Ann, Mary Beth, any other players, do you normally, for your corporations, do you get an email or something in writing from the Secretary of State's office that says, ka-ching, it's time for you to? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And so the person at the Secretary of State's office who I asked that question, he had no idea why we had never gotten a bill or never gotten anything. And he said we needed to pay, and they're going to try to get someone in touch with me to determine why we did not find out about needing to pay last year. Well, got with Linda on the phone, and I now have PDFs of the Secretary of State's sending our registration with invoice that says we're not charged anything and we don't have to pay anything.
Right.
Okay. But I don't want somebody looking through and says, hey, these guys haven't paid, boom, in the middle of some process. So As I've indicated before, part of my goal for my years as chairman is to get all the paperwork figured out and leave it in a tidy sum for somebody else. So we are pursuing what and how we document this so we don't have problems in the future.
Mm.
Okay, exciting stuff. But just to let you know, is there any question, hopefully not, on the administrative matters like this?
Nope.
Okay, sorry to bore you with it. I just feel like you guys need to know it.
Yes.
Update on buildings and market study. If it were not for COVID, I think we would be negotiating. We might even be finished negotiating an arrangement for the Tallulah Center. I spoke with, we'll say Party A, because there's a Party B coming up. Party A, who had planned to make a presentation in the normal March meeting. And if you go back and look at the agenda, I had executive session listed there. As you recall, Party A basically said with the sudden tanking of the economy and the COVID thing, they needed to pull back a little bit, see what the implication was for business, but they still intended to come back to us with the arrangement. I do not know the details of the arrangement. I am thinking it's probably something more on the purchase side than on the lease side. As I also mentioned, there's one other member of the DDA that Party A disclosed to. So it's not just me yakking here. The Party A asked us to just sort of hold on to the details and be anonymous, which we're going to do. They want to be anonymous at the moment. Anyway, I talked with Party A very recently and still strong interest. The timetable Party A suggested it would probably be 4 to 8 months before they were in a position to know how their core businesses were being impacted in financial arrangements, but would try to do it earlier if they could. So I think, and before every meeting, I'm going to check, but I think we've got someone who is wanting to give us a proposal as soon as we get straightened out COVID wise. So I also have Party B. Party B contacted me this week, and I'm looking to see if I'm hoping Party A or B might be on YouTube, watching this. Party B is someone that I do not know directly, but I do have some connections with. I've not spoken with this person before, but this is someone who has economic development, rural economic development background in professional experience, has also been an entrepreneur, storefront owner, has a product line that has a following on the internet, lives in the county, and has often looked at Tallulah Falls with interest. So we talked and very much had the same observations and a lot of the same things we got from Bill Turk in his study, some of those same observations. I don't think this is a person, I don't think right now that has the capital to come in and swoop in and make a purchase, but might work well with Party A, or might be someone who might be a good person for, if we had like a train depot like building that was unoccupied, or someone who might be a good person for an old general store looking building. There might be something there. Now, I have tried to, and I think this is going to happen, I've tried to get this person to talk with Bill Turk and, get Bill's reading on all of this. And just, again, keep you guys in the loop. My best hope would be we could get Party A in Tallulah Center and Party B maybe in another building and bring things up post-COVID. It's a dream I have. Don't know if it'll work, and it's going to take time for it to play out. But, it's a possibility. Also, and let me double check and make sure that our treasurer is not in the waiting room. I don't see him. As far as the Ranger House, the rock building, since January, there have been talk occasionally about making some public service use of that building, and I haven't pursued that too heavily. I was going to ask Joey if the route we had considered for that, if he thought that was still open or not, and don't know. I'll follow up with him. So, I think if it was, if it had not been for COVID, I think we would probably have had success if arrangements could be made between Party A and the town. And so we're just waiting for things to get a little closer to normal, and hopefully things will move forward. Questions, comments? Okay. So like I said, I just like for it to be on record. We haven't just been sitting around talking administrivia. There's stuff going on, and hopefully will continue to happen soon. New business, nominating committee. We appointed a nominating committee back in, I think, December, when we thought we were going to need to make personnel changes then. That was Ann and Dustin. The nominating committee is now hereby reactivated. And between, once we find out who the council appoints for Dustin's slot, I'm putting Dustin's name as a point of ownership there, but whoever occupies that slot, then we'll have a better sense of who the DDA members are. I don't know if and when the General Assembly will act on our change in charter. But once we will ask the town council to make an appointment for that position at their June meeting. And that will be early in June. Hopefully we will know. And then the nominating committee can get to work on who they recommend for the 4 officers. So I will not be chair again. So we will be looking at a chair. And Christy and David, and we'll get with Joey and see. Joey, given he may or may not be able to continue, given he's on the town council, he may want to take one thing off his plate. I don't know. And you and I have talked a little bit. Dustin, you and I haven't had a chance to talk yet, but we'll convene and talk a little bit as we get a better sense of who's going to be there. Questions? Okay. Budget. I emailed you a copy of last year's budget request and what we got from the town. You should be seeing that on your screen now. If you're not, somebody unmute and tell me you're not seeing it. Okay, so I see the PDF. The initial May 14th, 2019 list was basically, hey folks, town council, we're making this up. We've not had a budget before and we don't know what to ask for. And so we just sort of made some stuff up with the verbal understanding, if that was not sensible to them, our feelings were not hurt. And so what we came down to is, rather than the 21,000 that we just put out there, knowing we weren't going to get that, we came back with 9,000, 3,500 for insurance, 2,500 for legal fees, 1,500 for training, nothing for research and consultants, and 1,500 to start initiatives that we had talked about, things like maybe revolving loan fund, etc. Now, out of this, the only money we have spent is roughly 2,500 for our directors and officers insurance. We probably have spent a little bit out of legal fees, and we don't know it yet. When Party A first approached me, there were a couple of questions that I identified with and spoke with Warren, who is, of course, the town's attorney and one of our attorneys as we choose. And Warren did a little bit of work, not a lot. And when COVID kicked in, we just bookmarked it, and we'll pick that back up later and was not going to bill us at that time, though we may get a little bit of bill out of that. But a lot of it dealt with Party A, DDA, town, and maybe the town will get the bill. I don't know. So we have not, probably I could, and maybe David, we could have charged some money for expenses for some of the meetings we have attended, hotel room here or there, travel. We've not charged any of that. So the bulk of the budget from last year is still intact. Now, I have out of town with a deadline to submit a budget, but I thought we would go ahead and just be heads up on this. Two things come to mind, and then you can throw out other stuff. One, we could ask for $2,500. That's how much every year it costs us for insurance. That's what we've spent. You know, town, would you replenish what we spent? That's one option. The other option is, hey, we're good. We still got some money. And, you know, if things are tight, we can get by off the fat of the land of what we have. Now, at some point in time, especially if we have to send new DDA member or members to training, we'll have money coming out of training. Assuming post-COVID, we have, you know, something going on with Party A and or Party B, then legal fees will come into play, and we would have to ask more money there. So those are the two kind of ends of this that I see. And it's going to be you guys to decide what is it the DDA wants to request. I'm okay with either one of those.
Well, the purpose of a budget is to budget your upcoming expenses
Right.
out of your income to the town, correct? And we still have money, probably enough to get us through this year. So maybe we should just, you know, shepherd the money that they put in our account last year and, you know, not be an item on this year's budget.
I agree.
I agree with that.
Yeah, me too. It sounds like there's not going to be a lot happening for the next like 6 to 8 months anyway. And by we're halfway through the year with still money to go on. So.
And you had a thought?
No, I said I agree.
Okay. And be aware that we may need to come back if we start looking at some initiatives like revolving loan fund or something. We may have to come back to the town if we spend some of that other money, but that's fine. So
You have a reason to do it then,
Right, exactly.
Right.
you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
it just doesn't seem necessary to ask for any money when we used so little of the money that we got last year. And not knowing, not having a lot, you know, on the table that we're moving towards, it doesn't really seem necessary.
Okay, so I
Ask.
don't know what, normally if we put forth a budget, we would have, you know, a budget document and we would vote on it. I guess, do I have a motion that the DDA will at this time request no additional funding as a part of the 2020-2021 budget
Fiscal year.
fiscal year?
so
Okay, so
moved.
Dustin made the motion. Sounded like Ann, that sounded like that was a second.
It can be.
Okay. All in favor indicate by aye.
Hi.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, we move on. All right. Opportunities, and opportunities is going to be also open floor for the discussion just for a few minutes. I attended a training session yesterday for development authorities. This was an online session. And I'm trying to think, Dustin, you and I have talked a little bit. And yeah, Christy, you may be the main one that I've missed talking to, although we emailed a little bit. Are there opportunities that our current situation, things being down, does that situation present us with unusual opportunities that if we're smart enough to catch them, we might be able to capitalize on? Now, Mary Beth did a very good job recognizing that at the moment, other than her business, we don't have any tourism businesses thriving. And with her experience from the council with some of the problems they had with signage, maybe this is a good time to let's clean up signage so that anybody coming in would know what was expected. Now, the council didn't particularly jump on that in a positive way the last meeting, but I think maybe there's room to revisit. Mary Beth, as I said, I talked to a council member, maybe have some insights.
If there was a way we could charge for parking on weekends.
For sure.
Thought about that in terms of the Tallulah Center, you know, if someone wanted to volunteer and sit out there and charge parking.
I mean, there were people trying to park on our campus. It was insane.
They were parking.
Was there a lot of parking on your campus?
On the middle school camp, they were trying to park in our parking area and walk all the way to the gorge from there.
Dang, that's far.
Direct them by Mary Beth's place. That, you know, when they do that.
It's probably already full, which is why they're up there at the school.
Crazy.
Okay. Was that an organized group last Sunday? Was there an organized group, or was that just a bunch of people?
There was nothing organized about Sunday.
Well, I noticed that the Tallulah Center parking lot had been roped off.
Yeah, Jennifer asked him to do that.
Okay. And yeah, and I noticed Ann's place is roped off as well. Parking, and again, you mentioned, Jennifer, you mentioned the state park. We start parking, then we have to talk with the state park because they've got some concerns there as well. But yeah, okay.
Not if they park on private property we charge. That would have nothing to do with the state park.
No, you're right. You're right. And
I was being somewhat sarcastic, but I mean, it would be somewhat of a cash cow right now.
Yeah, for sure.
okay. Well, that would, even if it's legally, there's nothing that could be a problem. Having sat in enough meetings with the state park folks, that is a hot button issue for them. But
I think they're trying hard to limit their numbers. So if we were offering paid parking, that would work against their goal there of limiting
true.
how many cars can come in. Maybe we could just write them all tickets and get revenue that way.
Well, yeah, and then if they get mad and speed out of town, we could probably catch them then as well. Okay, moving on from parking, are there some thoughts? And we don't have to have them all today, but okay.
Anyone with a food cart? Anyone with a food cart?
Well, I have talked with Maria because she's got that, what she calls the flying cloud. And I told her, I said, you have a great opportunity, you know, to come down to the point and set up, even if I'm closed, there's so many people there. I don't know if she's going to take me up on that or not. Oh, she'd have to get a
Permit.
yeah. But I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's been talked about.
Okay. Any other, and that's Sky Burgers, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Anything that we, and operationally, it doesn't sound like we've really got downtime. It sounds like at this point in time, people are here.
Right.
We just don't have any businesses and don't have anything to capitalize on their presence.
I'm considering some options for Tallulah Point and looking at like what would be some, safe ways to generate some income. Might happen this weekend. I don't know. But I'm not ready to be open, and have people coming into the shop. But I am considering some other things just because I've got a shop full of stuff I'd love to sell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Other ideas? This is the discussion part of the class. I've been lecturing for most of it, so it's now time to discuss, class.
I mean, I don't know what we could do. I mean, we had that discussion about how do you get new businesses? I don't know. I don't know how.
One of the things that Party B mentioned in my conversation, unbidden, was talking about the things that they had done previously and that it had spun off some businesses in support of their business, which is that whole business incubator thing that we've been talking about. And it sounds like this is somebody who's actually done that sort of thing in the past. And I also mentioned to Party B, Mary Beth, that area down, your loop down there, that maybe what she would want to do might fit in one of those buildings as well. And those probably are less expensive than the Tallulah Center, though the fixing them up might be about as costly. I don't know.
Well, I have noticed on the Crows building that they have for sale signs back on the
Saw
building.
that. Okay. Okay. Do you know who's representing them, or is that just for sale by owner?
Yes, I think it was just, for sale by owner signs.
Well, I expect there will be additional discussion with Party B, and so we'll see what comes out. Right quick, let me, from the training that I went through, and if this sparks any ideas, jump in right quick, and we'll wrap this up in another 5-10 minutes. But at the training, while it was Dan McRae, one of Dan McRae's free trainings, first time they've done it in Zoom, he liked that. He got at the end, he was saying he really liked doing it. I'm hoping that means he will do more of them and they will be more accessible. It was not, what I experienced was not the exact same things we did before. There was a lot of overlap. There were a few new alphabet soup names that I did not immediately recognize. I will download the PowerPoints and chase them a little bit to see if there's something that might be an opportunity for us. One of the more interesting parts of it was a presentation by Alfie Meek. And Alfie worked for the same unit of Georgia Tech that I did some years ago. He's their chief economist. He is on the governor's coronavirus task force and does a lot of economic modeling. And so he was, just for economic development people, presenting what he saw. He initially said that when this first started, he was one of those V-shaped recession guys that's going to pick back up and go. He says he's no longer of that opinion, that there has been some significant damage to the economy, but there's also long-term crisis. Now, he was not concerned about a banking crisis. He said that there is going to be a problem in, and Ann, you may, from your background, speak to this better than I can, that, there's a lot of commercial properties that aren't making the rent, and there are going to be some problems there. But his perspective was there's going to be enough rescue of that type of thing that he was not anticipating a major banking crisis. He said the thing that he watched was not the unemployment number or the filing for unemployment, but there's another number in there called the continuing claims. He said in the unemployment number, a lot of that is people who are laid off, but then in a week or so, they're back.
Mhm.
due to the disruption. He said the number to watch was the continuing claims where people who were laid off, but who are not getting rehired. And that was the thing that he was watching closely. He said that, a second, right quick. There was talk in the second quarter that the GDP was down 35%, which is an annualized number. He said that that would mitigate when you start looking at the entire year. His prediction, the entire year would be an 8 to 10% drop in the GDP, which he said the Great Recession was only a 2.5% drop in the GDP. So he said, that's going to be important. He said personal consumption had held up better than he expected because of Amazon, but mall-based retail, he said, of course, had dropped. And his expectations, one of the things he talked about was what has changed permanently in all of this. And first of all, he said that no one knows any of this, that the economists have no models for this. This is unprecedented. There's nothing for them to fall back on and say for sure this is what experience shows. But he said, there's some things like retail. He is not sure that retail will come back ever to what it was, that we've made enough adjustments to buying at home that, people have gotten used to that malls will come back, but maybe not like they were. He also has some questions about the movie theater industry. He said people have gotten really happy with binge watching and doing things at home, and thinks there's some problems there. Restaurants, he said, would have a problem. A question that I tried to get in and didn't get it in during his presentation was that if people have money and they're not going to the malls to hang out and not going to the restaurants in Metro Atlanta, can we create adventure retail where you come up here and spend money, in retail? And again, maybe it's what we're talking about for the Tallulah Center, but maybe there's some other way we can play that with people who aren't going to the malls as much, but can we capture some of that money that used to go to the Mall of Georgia with some type of activity here? One of the things that he feels like there's going to be a push away from global supply chains, which really isn't our issue. He said that business travel will decline. Commercial value of retail may drop. One of the things that he did say is that people, he felt some of the shift to working from home was probably going to be permanent, and that people would, if you're in downtown Atlanta, that your area that you would live in that you could tolerate will expand. He said he was already doing some, work from home and coming in to work 2-3 days a week. He said now he and his group were going to come in 1 day a week. And that was mostly just, he says, as much as anything for social and keeping the working relationships together. But he said this expands the boundaries that people would be willing to work or to live in compared to where they work. And I think that has, and Ann, you and I have talked about this some, I think that has some real possibilities for us. My wife works in Gainesville, and for people doing office work or doing intellectual work, doing, things that don't require physical presence, I think Tallulah Falls would be a really good place long-term for people who are doing managerial and executive work and professional work to live. And that may open up some options for the town. A lot of other interesting stuff, but I don't want to keep you around. Dan McCrae quoting, I think, I'm not sure who the author, remember everything is right until it's wrong. And a big part of his presentation was towns and authorities need to be very careful giving money away in support of the local economy. He said there's some very serious laws about gifting, and some of the people who are talking about what they're doing there, he was kind of telling them, you guys are breaking the law and you need to fix it. So he said, while a lot of things were like be very nice to do, to help local economy from, city budgets or grant programs or whatever, he says you can very easily get into very serious illegal territory there, and to be very, very cautious. So not that we're about to throw away money. Okay. Communication to the town council. We need to make sure they know that we have recommended Dustin be reappointed. Any other items to future agendas?
That we also need to communicate about the motion for the budget, right?
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. And we will communicate that, we decided that at this point in time, we could roll with what we've got, and we'll approach them if we need more. And if they want something in the budget from us, we'll come up with something, but
This isn't something that needs to be communicated to the city council, but just because we were behind the backing of it, the natatorium's slated to be finished in December, about 6 months ahead of schedule.
super.
It's looking fantastic. Sits 300 people. It's pretty amazing. So,
Madam Secretary, make sure there's a note in the minutes somewhere that this project that we funded is coming to fruition early. Did that save y'all even more money? Maybe.
I'm not privy to that.
I got you. Okay. Obviously, in the July meeting, we will be electing new officers. And, we'll see if we meet physically next month, or if we do this online next month. We'll see what makes sense. Okay. And again, if we're in a situation where there's really no great need to meet, we'll make that assessment as we go into June. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
David, thank you. Okay. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Mary Beth seconds. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Thank you for listening to Professor Nelm, since this was mostly me talking. I appreciate your patience.
Thank
And
you.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you, Professor.
y'all take
Thank you.
care.
Bye, all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.